Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Triple N Talk Show. I am Dr. Nik Nikam, and today we have a very special topic. Let's talk about human trafficking. And my special guest is Misa Win. She's the director of United Against Human Trafficking, that is UAHT. And next to her is Hemang Thakur. Hemang Thakur deals with drugs. I should say he was dealing with drugs the last time I talked to him. Hemang, are you still dealing with drugs?
Yes, Dr. Nikam, and actually, fortunately, it's prescription drugs. So, I like to stay on the legal side.
Thanks for clarifying.
And you know how, the music and drugs kind of go hand in hand,
we're going
right?
to talk about that. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, all our programs are video streamed through YouTube and Google Plus, and we would like you to please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. We also have a Facebook page, which is a Triple N Media or NANO News Network, where we bring you the latest buzz from around the world, and we would like you to please visit our Facebook page and like it. Misa, is delighted to have you.
Thank you.
Let's start off by giving a little bit about your introduction, and then we will talk about, and before we go to that, I also want to say why Hemang Thakur is here. He's not here selling any drugs. He is going to be doing a fundraising concert. Hemang, you want to tell us what this is about before we go into the real topic, which is a human trafficking?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you, Dr. Nick, for giving us a chance and talk about one of the most important and a very serious issue of human trafficking. So one of the main reasons for this concert that me and my team are organizing is called Decades of Bollywood, in which a lot of local, fantastic musical talents coming together and presenting a musical journey of Bollywood from 1950s to the present day.
And I was not even born then.
Well, yep, I hear you.
Okay, that's good. So you're doing a Bollywood music for a fundraiser to increase the awareness
Absolutely.
of human trafficking and also support these programs, that can change people's life.
Absolutely.
Okay, Misa, let's talk about what is human trafficking.
Sure. Well, human trafficking is essentially a form of modern-day slavery. It's where men, women, and children can be forced to provide some kind of work, labor, service against their will. We have two main types of human trafficking that we identify in the United States. We have labor trafficking and we have sex trafficking, where someone can be forced into prostitution against their will. And that's really what's at heart here. We have people who are not free to leave their situation.
Hold on 1 second. Okay, say something now.
Hello? Hello? Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Okay,
Was that not loud? Do I need to repeat? Do I need to go through the beginning?
That's fine.
Okay.
And would you mind the introduction, like in the very first line, when you introduce her, say Director of United Against Human Trafficking?
Okay.
Because
Director of Programs.
Director of Human Trafficking would be bad.
Yeah. I was like,
So Director of United.
Okay.
or, well,
What is the official
Director
title?
of, actually my title is literally just changing right now. So
Okay, what is that?
Director of Education,
Let's do that. Director of Education at
United Against Human
United
Trafficking.
Against Human Trafficking. I
Yeah.
think that's better.
Director of
Yeah.
Education
Yes, of Education.
At
United Against
Yeah.
Human Trafficking.
Human
Because if you say
Trafficking.
director, then that could be misconstrued as I'm the executive director,
Yeah.
and that's not
Right.
my
Director
title.
of Education.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay.
Our special guest is Misa Win, who is a Director of Education of United Against Human Trafficking. Yes, we are going to learn something about human trafficking. Okay, let's continue.
Sure. Well, I answered the first question, so do you want to kind of go through? Okay.
When you talked about trafficking, at least when he told me on the phone, I said, oh man, trafficking, are we talking about moving people from country to country? Just today, the European Union, just hours ago, they voted for all American citizens to have a visa to enter Europe.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's a little sideline. Okay, this human trafficking is all across the globe. I mean, when I was in India, we heard about these things. We hear it in every other country. How is it different in the United States compared to the rest of the world?
Well, in reality, human trafficking is a global crime, and so it doesn't necessarily differ in some general aspects of how it occurs, where it occurs. And just previously, you referenced, does it involve some kind of movement? Well, human trafficking as a crime, in order to occur, does not necessarily necessitate, that someone must be moved from one place to another. Because at heart, we have the definition where someone must be recruited, harbored, transported, so some kind of action must be taken by means of force, fraud, coercion, or for the purpose of sexual exploitation and labor exploitation. So that's really what you have to have at a minimum. Sometimes transportation is involved, but that's not a requirement for the crime.
It could happen right in the neighborhood or within the family, for that matter.
Absolutely. We have had cases here in Harris County, in Houston, even here in Fort Worth, and sorry, excuse me about that. We've had cases here in Houston, Harris County, where children have been trafficked by their relatives, sometimes even a parent or a grandparent.
Yeah, you are right, because from time to time we hear or see in the media, newspapers, where parents have abused children and relatives or close friends. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you are watching Triple N Media. I am Dr. Nik Nikam, and my special guest is Misa Wen, who is the Director of Education of United Against Human Traffic. I'm learning. And next to her is Hemang Thakur, who is a pharmaceutical representative, so I should use the appropriate term here too, instead of saying drug dealer. Okay, so let's talk about, are there any special hotbeds for human trafficking in different parts of the country here?
We don't necessarily recognize that there are particular hot spots, because human trafficking is something that can happen anywhere. However, the Department of Justice did a study of the United States back in between 2001 and 2004, and released a list of the top 20 cities across the United States that have increased jurisdictions, or intense jurisdictions of human trafficking, is the direct quote. And it actually identified Houston and El Paso as two of the cities from Texas that were identified with these factors. So it has to do with...
Is Houston at the top?
No, so there's not necessarily a ranking in terms of how intense human trafficking is. However, according to the National Human Trafficking Hotline that tracks data of calls and reports made to this direct toll-free hotline that's run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, has actually ranked Texas as second to only California in terms of the volume of calls and cases that have been identified through the hotline.
That's interesting. So when you're talking about Houston, what is the magnitude of this problem?
Well, within Houston, again, we don't necessarily have a way of actually knowing exactly how widespread this crime is or how large it is, because of the fact that it's a very hidden crime. But we do know that Houston has a lot of factors, according to that Department of Justice report, because of our transportation networks, our diversity of population here, and ways that you can have people be brought into the city or transported through the city and have them blend very seamlessly into the local population.
Does this city keep statistics in terms of how many people have been identified or how many people have been helped in this particular field?
Certain agencies do keep track. We're actually part of a local initiative, and actually a couple of local bodies that are working on attempts to strengthen our data collection around this largely hidden crime.
That's interesting. Okay, let's talk about some of the misconceptions about human trafficking.
Absolutely. So, in the beginning of this interview, you mentioned one large misconception about human trafficking, in that it has to involve some kind of form of transportation. People often confuse the crime of human trafficking with that of human smuggling, which is a very similar crime because it can lead to human trafficking, but at a distilled base, human trafficking is a crime against a person, whereas human smuggling is a crime against a border. Someone must be moved
from country to country.
From country to country. That crossing is always illegal. Whereas, as we were just talking about human trafficking before, you don't necessarily have to be moved. You only need someone to be exploited for labor or sex against their will.
So, are there any differences among like sex, labor, or slavery type of trafficking?
Absolutely. There are some differences in terms of really what the person is forced to do.
Yeah.
So within labor trafficking, we observe that here in the United States, we see men, women, and children that can be forced to provide any sort of labor. So that could be construction work, that could be housekeeping, being a nanny or a maid in someone's home, that could be being forced to work in a nail salon or braiding hair in a hair salon. And so there are a lot of different entities that you can think to begin to exploit someone purely for their work, for their labor within the terms of labor trafficking. Sex trafficking, on the other hand, is where someone is forced to provide a sexual act against their will. And that act is typically for something or anything of value. Actually, that's in the legal definition. So that can constitute money, that can constitute food, clothing, shelter, and so on and so forth. And so it's important to recognize that individuals who may appear to be involved in prostitution, which is the crime of committing a commercial sex act and committing a sexual act for something of value. But individuals in sex trafficking are not prostitutes. They are those who are forced into prostitution.
So they're not doing voluntarily to just make a living or something like that.
Occasionally, it's difficult for people to really grasp that misconception because even if people say whether they're involved in labor trafficking or sex trafficking, if they obtained the job, if they took the job thinking that, I'm going to be able to come to this country and make money to send back to my family, it sounds like a great offer. Even if you willingly entered the situation, oftentimes they don't necessarily know what they're getting themselves into because they've been lied to, that they think it's a great sounding job offer, or they think that this person really cares about them, that they're their boyfriend, their girlfriend, who then forces them into sexual exploitation. But at heart, it doesn't matter who you are or where you came from, whether you came to this country legally or illegally, you are a victim of crime in this country, and therefore you have rights.
And if I may just say something here, Darla and I, my wife and I, had to go through the official training as we were planning this concert. And we heard a couple of stories, the examples that you were talking about, Misa, during the Hurricane Katrina. One example had happened with a couple of contractors bringing, hundreds of Indian workers. And how, you may expand on that if we have time. And the another example I remember about some nurses from Philippines who were also brought, under some false promises of, the permanent, the residency or the great job. And once they land here, it's just some of the, very horrible stories. But luckily, a lot of these stories have ended up in, happy ending, if you will. And through the efforts of people like Misa and the United Against Human Trafficking, who is right here in Houston.
That's fascinating. Sex is sort of a very defined topic. Whereas it comes to labor, it could be in many, many different shapes and forms. Because they may be voluntarily working, but if they are paid way below wages, is that considered human trafficking or exploitation?
It may not necessarily be, because according to the federal law, the Trafficking Victims Protection Act that was enacted by Congress in 2000, it defines human trafficking in terms of severe forms of trafficking.
I see.
So wage theft is actually what I would say you just identified and stated, is commonly misconstrued as potential human trafficking because it looks like human trafficking, because people in human trafficking are commonly either not paid or paid very little. However, it lacks a level of force, fraud, or coercion. So in those situations, typically, to differentiate, if we could put some black and white terms around it or attempt to, individuals who are able to freely choose to leave their job or situation. No one is threatening them from leaving that job. No one is physically beating them or coercing them to remain in that job. Therein lies, with that force, fraud, or coercion, lies the difference between a situation of wage theft or human trafficking.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are watching Triple N Talk Show. I am Dr. Nik Nikam, and today we are talking about United Against Human Trafficking, and my special guest is Misa Win, who is the Director of Education of United Against Human Traffic, and next to her He's my good friend Hemang Tucker, and he is a musician, and he is also a pharmaceutical representative, so I need to stay corrected. And he's going to be talking about the fundraiser that is going to be coming up. Let's talk about what kind of things facilitate the victims' situation and the people who really do these kind of horrific things of using human beings as a means of making illegal money.
Absolutely. It's difficult to say. So what we know thus far, this is really a crime that has been on our society's consciousness for roughly 17 years now, considering the federal law was passed in 2000.
It's probably been there since the dawn of human civilization.
Exactly. I mean, that is the difficulty with this crime, is when you hear about it. I mean, we've had advocates in the field that were fighting on behalf of, victims of human trafficking since prior to 2000, and that's really why we got this law enacted, in part. And so, really, there's a lot of different factors that can contribute to a person being lured into exploitation or recruited into exploitation. I think one of the major push factors, if you will, is poverty, opportunity. Love, attention, and affection. Sometimes it's by someone's gender orientation or sexual orientation that causes them. Family circumstances. We're talking about really very marginalized populations here that can be pushed or lured and are very vulnerable to being victims of exploitation.
Is human trafficking a federal crime?
It is a federal crime and a state crime.
So what kind of penalties one would expect if somebody is caught doing human trafficking?
It depends on if the crime of human trafficking is that of labor trafficking or sex trafficking. In general, the penalties tend to be stronger or longer for sex trapficking. But typically speaking, they can be put into jail. They can be, prison, and serve sentences as minimum of 5 years to 20 years, or up to life in prison. It also depends if the victim is a child or a minor, someone under the age of 18, or someone who has the victim experienced severe trauma or died in captivity.
That's pretty scary.
It is. This is a pretty serious crime.
Okay, let's talk about the role of City of Houston. I know I saw on the website Mayor Sylvester Turner is very, very seriously involved with this topic of human trafficking. And tell us about your organization and what you all actually do and how you help people who are victims of human trafficking, and the involvement of the city in this particular, noble work.
Sure. Well, I can start with explaining who our organization is and what we do. We are United Against Human Trafficking, and our mission is to end human trafficking through awareness, education, and outreach. And some of the main ways we do that is to train frontline professionals, so healthcare professionals such as yourself, social service providers, educators, law enforcement, first responders, to identify victims of human trafficking and connect them to resources and report their crime. So we do a lot of educational work. I'm the director of education in that regard, but we also do outreach. So we have a part of our organization that is striving to focus on vulnerable populations in Houston, the homeless population, those in crisis situations, such as at a domestic violence shelter, those in juvenile probation or the prison or jail system, allowing them to recognize that they might have been a victim of human trafficking and connect them to resources.
Let's give out your contact information, and also if you have a hotline for some of these people who are victims, who would like to get some help.
Sure. Well, so our local organization, you can find out more information just by going online. Our website is UAHT. That's the acronym of our organization's name, United Against Human Trafficking. And you just have to go to www.uaht.org, and you can find out all the information, contact us, fill out an email correspondence, request a speaker if you are one of the professionals that I named, or you're a community member and you want to learn more about what you can do you can feel free to contact us. And you asked about a hotline, so I'd like to really share the number for the National Human Trafficking Hotline. It's a wonderful resource. It's actually one of our greatest resources here in the United States to combat human trafficking. And it's 1-888-37-37-888. So it's 1-888-37-37-888. And it's a toll-free hotline, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with multiple language accessibility. And it's a great resource for us here in Houston, as well as across the state, because anywhere you travel in the United States, you can call this number if you see something, report it, or if you have a question about human trafficking, you can definitely call them.
What about, all these victims are under such tight leash, I should say. How do they get around it to report or get the officials to know what their situations are?
That is a great question, absolutely. We've actually seen in the past number of years, particularly in the past couple of years or so, an increase in survivors or victims, calling the hotline and starting their journey and their process to becoming a survivor of this crime. And it's been really wonderful because not only is there a 24-hour hotline, there's actually a texting capability that they've added. It's limited at the moment between the hours of 11 and 3 p.m. and in English only at this time, but they've already seen success in victims reaching out. And you ask a great question about how do victims actually do that. I think that goes back to your question about misconceptions, because when we think about human trafficking, we tend to generalize. I think it's just the nature of being human. We want to kind of put people into categories or ideas and concepts. It just helps us to remember more. With victims of human trafficking, people tend to relate and think that it's a woman or a girl, someone who looks very fearful or scared, when in reality, victims of human trafficking can look like you or I. They are people that have to function. People, even elderly people.
Captivity and
absolutely, they're mistreated, but at the same time in public, or they might necessarily. They might not necessarily be wearing chains or handcuffs or anything like that, or look dirty or disheveled all the time, but they still could be a victim of human trafficking because of that control that's exhibited over them.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching United Against Human Trafficking, and my special guest is Misa Win, and she's the Director of Education of United Against Human Trafficking, and next to her is Hemang Thakur, who is going to be doing a fundraising coming up, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. Okay, let's talk about how can the general public get involved with this particular project and give any type of support in terms of for financial or logistical or knowledge-wise?
Absolutely. We need so much support from the community in order to make this happen. We ourselves are a nonprofit organization, a 501c3. We work with our law enforcement partners, our social service provider partners who are providing direct services, but we are few compared to many of you out there who may be able to be eyes and ears in your community. I will just tell you a short story about a recent case and the power that community members have. You may have heard about this case of domestic servitude in Katy, Texas, where
I heard because of the social media. I don't have to watch the TV or newspaper or anything. Everything is going to show up live, real time.
Yes, that is the beauty of the time we live in.
That's right.
Absolutely. Well, this couple, it was a Nigerian couple that recruited a Nigerian woman to come to the United States and care for their children. She had already worked for them in Nigeria, and so said, okay, yeah, this seems like a great opportunity. You will, pay me $100 a month, insert that directly into my bank account for my family in Nigeria. And they offered her medical care for, I believe she had a major medical issue with her arm. But in fact, they brought her to the United States. They confiscated her documents that brought her here, and they forced her to work from 5:30 in the morning to 1 a.m. at night, caring for, I believe, 5 children. And they physically abused her. They verbally abused her. One of the horrific tortures that they inflicted upon her that came out in her testimony was that they would not allow her fresh milk to drink with her tea. She had to strain it from the children's cereal that was left over from that morning. But luckily, there was a neighbor in that neighborhood who observed these things, was able to reach out to her. So when she was able to escape her situation, she was able to leave the household without the traffickers knowing and recognizing it immediately, was able to go to that neighbor and cry out for help.
You know, this not only deal happens in ordinary families, it can go all the way up to diplomats bringing people from other countries. And there was a big case in New York. I don't want to keep elaborating that, but we want to see how we can help and promote awareness and all these things.
Yes, yes.
Okay, let's talk about what is the role of City of Houston and how Mayor has been helpful in this particular project.
Sure. The City of Houston has been recognized to be really just on the forefront of human trafficking. We are unique as a city in that we have a special advisor to the mayor on human trafficking. So we have an actual position within municipal government that strictly focuses on addressing this issue in our city. Her name is Meenal Patel Davis, and she's doing a wonderful, wonderful job really promoting this issue at a city level and bringing different organizations together to work collaboratively on this issue.
Maybe next time we can have her come with you, and then we talk about the way people can really reach these different entities and get familiar with the whole project. Ladies and gentlemen, you are watching a Triple N talk show. I am Dr. Nik Nikam, and my special guest is Misa Win, and we are talking about United Against Human Trafficking. Finally, I'm getting that whole sentence right. Next to her is Hemang Thakur, and we are going to be talking about a fundraiser that is going to be coming up in a week, right?
March 10th coming up.
Okay, yeah, we'll talk. Okay, let's talk about the different things that are done under your organization. Like I was looking at your website, you have like the taxi industry, toolkit, cards, things like that.
Oh, so those are resources that are being promoted, and we work collaboratively with the Mayor's Council on Human Trafficking that is chaired by Special Advisor to the Mayor on Human Trafficking, Meenal Patel Davis. But through that, yes, we have helped to influence and inform some of these materials. On a city level, we actually have an anti-human trafficking strategic plan.
Yeah.
And so you can read about that on the website.
Let's play role scenario here.
Sure.
Let's say a young lady, maybe one of her friends call your hotline and say, this lady is being abused here. And walk us through how you help this lady to get away from this jail or bondage.
Sure. So in reference, our agency, United Against Human Trafficking, does not necessarily operate an hotline.
You're not going to go and knock on the door. Okay, here are the handcuffs. Now you need to.
But we occasionally,
different steps that's involved.
Absolutely. We occasionally actually get calls into our organization. So we can explain really in general from the hotline perspective, the National Human Trafficking Hotline. If an individual calls the hotline, such as the one that you specified, a lady who's in need of help, the operator is trained to answer in a very supportive, trauma-informed manner, recognizing that trauma can have an effect on this individual's response to their questions, and really try to approach the caller in a supportive manner. And so they'll ask them about, what kind of details. They're really trying to find out, is this a situation of human trafficking? Is there, what kind of exploitation is it? Is it forced fraud or coercion? And is there imminent danger? That's one of the key things that they're trying to ascertain immediately, because they want to know how quickly or how, how to best route that information. So typically what the hotline operators will do, as they're very well trained to, is take that information and indicate it, how many levels of indicators does it have? Is it a medium risk phone call or report, or is it a high risk? Those are really the two main thresholds that they use to then send the information down to the local area. So information from the national hotline actually gets funneled down to a law enforcement task force that we have
so it
here.
first goes to the law enforcement.
So it goes to a law enforcement. It's actually a collaborative. It's a Human Trafficking Rescue Alliance, and it's comprised of local, state, and federal law enforcement partners.
It's also interstate crime.
Yes. So absolutely, and in that way, we actually have FBI, a local FBI Houston that sits on, and they can really handle interstate criminality or cases. They can step in that way, or our U.S. prosecutors. But we also have county prosecutors. We also have county law enforcement, constables, sheriffs, and even the Houston Police Department, which is actually the current lead on the law enforcement side.
Yeah.
We also have social service providers that come and respond as well. So there's always a law enforcement partner and a social service provider partner that receives all tips that come from the national hotline, and they have to work together in order to support this crime, because you can't always send out a law enforcement agent to respond to a potential victim situation because they may have a strong distrust or not necessarily want to cooperate with law enforcement. And so in that effect, that's why we also have service providers who are ready and willing to respond.
Sometimes their life may be in danger because the moment the owners find out that they are going to the law enforcement, then their life may be in more danger than it was ever before. And in those situations, you may have to evacuate that person from there and maybe get them to I wouldn't say child protective service, but adult protective service.
Emergency shelter.
Okay, let's give out the contact information about United Against Human Trafficking, and then we will talk about the concert with our pharmaceutical representative, a musician, band leader. Okay. Sure.
Well, United Against Human Trafficking, you can reach us by going online. Our website is UAHT. That stands for United Against Human Trafficking. And you can go to uaht.org. You can fill out a form to request a speaker if you are a frontline professional like a law enforcement, first responder, healthcare provider, social service provider, educator, you name it. Basically, we can provide some kind of training to you. Or if you would like to receive general information as a community member, what to do, how to get involved, how to get connected. We also operate a coalition that people can join and organizations can join to come together collaboratively to effect change on this issue in the city of Houston. So you can contact us online, or you can email us at contact@uaht.org, and we hope to see you soon.
Let's give it the hotline number again.
Sure, absolutely. If you would like to call in and report a situation of human trafficking or to find out more information, you can call the National Human Trafficking Hotline. That's 1-888-3737-888. And again, it's a toll-free hotline, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with multiple language capabilities.
Lisa, thank you so much for increasing my awareness and hopefully all the listeners' awareness against all these dangers of human trafficking. And increasing awareness is one aspect, one side of the coin. The second side of the coin is we're going to need coin to run these businesses. So Hemang Thakkar is going to come into this picture. Hemang, let's talk about how your group is trying to support this program.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Nik, and thank you, Misa, for this wonderful information. So, as you know, Dr. Nik, music has been a passion for me for ever. And last year was the first time, if you remember, we did a charity concert to promote a different cause.
Yeah, I was there. I interviewed your partners.
Absolutely. And that was a huge success. So right after the concert, one of our family friends, Lillian, approached us and said, hey, would you mind doing another charity concert for United Against Human Trafficking? And honestly speaking, I didn't know much about that issue either. Lillian being so passionate about this issue, I said, absolutely, why not? So that's how the whole idea of this concert came along. And here we are coming together, 5 singers, 7 musicians, a team of 12 incredible musicians from all over the country, for that matter. And our main goal is to increase the awareness about this very serious issue. And by no means we're not going to solve this problem. But through this type of efforts, even if we just increase awareness a little bit, and if we are able to even change one life, because I'm sure you will agree, Misa and Dr. Nik, that even 1 degree of better is better. And that's our, overall goal through this Bollywood concert, if you will.
Concert. Okay, let's talk about what day it is, what time it is going to be, and where people can get tickets, and how else they can donate money. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, you got to donate money. I mean, we would love for you to come and attend the concert, but please do support these kind of causes, and of course, it is all going to be tax deductible. Maybe I'm just going to say it is going to be tax deductible.
Yeah, the direct donations to United Against Human Trafficking are absolutely tax deductible. So that's one of the options that I'm going to be discussing also.
Yeah.
And Dr. Nik said this would not be possible without some financial resources. So I must thank all of our sponsors, and US-wide Financial being our lead sponsor from day one, even though they're not even in Houston.
I see.
The company is based out of St. Louis. And Mr. Grover and his local friend Bhargav, they have been so supportive.
Yeah.
And along with many other sponsors, they have made this possible. So the concert is happening next Friday, March 10th at 8 p.m. At the Stafford Civic Center, the old Stafford Civic Center. Ticket starts at only $10. Dr. Nik, you can go to Starbucks, have 2 lattes, $10 right there.
No, if you take a friend, you won't get that.
You won't even get that. You can go to a movie theater and buy a $10 ticket.
My ticket is $10.50, even after senior citizens discount.
There you go. So the ticket starts only at $10. You can purchase tickets on Sulekha.com or humtumdesi.com or locally at Maharani Video. And of course, you can call me directly or message me directly on Facebook or via text, and we can make it happen.
Give out your phone number.
Absolutely. Number is 281-932-8933. 281-932-8933.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have been talking about human trafficking. This is an universal problem. It has no social status or financial level or anything like that. It can affect anybody at any level in life, and I think it's a great way to, one, increase the awareness of human trafficking, and more importantly, we would like you to please do attend and bring your wallets so that you can generously support this program. And Misa, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and Hemang Thakur.
Thank you, Dr. Nik.
Thank you.
Would it be okay to just give a brief description of the local talent who would be the part of this wonderful concert? So another incentive for the local Houstonian to attend this is let's support our local. We have incredible musical talent in Houston. So some of the singers that you're going to be enjoying, Salil Bhadekar, who actually won Saregama 2002. Then we have, and then we have Hardik Jani, who was the contestants on season 1 Indian Idol. Then we have Payal Mitra, who was also on Saregama Bangla top 11 contestant. We have wonderful singer from Dallas coming, Vishruti Vyas. So we have incredible singers. We have musicians coming from LA, New York, Chicago, Raleigh, 4 of them, and the rest of them are right here from Houston or Texas. So please come out and support this great cause. Purchase tickets, and even if you cannot make the concert, Dr. Nik, a lot of our friends are actually purchasing tickets, and they say, even though I cannot be there, we're going to give away those tickets free,
somebody else.
Or they're letting us give away those tickets free. And another way you can also help is make a donation directly to United Against Human Trafficking.
Okay, let's give out that website address where people can donate money directly.
Sure. If you go to our website, which is uaht.org, there's a menu item right there that says donate. You can click on that and donate from your own home.
Absolutely. And ladies and gentlemen, and not only we are trying to increase your awareness, we would also like you to please do come and attend the concert. It's only $10, and also support our local artists, who are all doing it voluntarily.
Absolutely. And a lot of musicians who are playing with us actually have played in Bollywood industry, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
For the last 30 to 40 years, these musicians have played and recorded thousands of songs with all the leading music directors. So you will definitely enjoy. That's our guarantee.
Yes. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and we will see you next time. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.